When you're building a business, when you're trying to succeed and build momentum, disruption is the number one way to do it. Disrupting an industry, disrupting something that needs to be disrupted. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. This is Chris Naugle, and you are watching the Money School podcast, where today we're going to talk about disruption. That's right. We're going to disrupt some shit today. That's what we're going to do because my guest, Scott Morse, that's what he's done. For good, bad, or indifferent, for when you're building a business, when you're trying to succeed and build momentum, disruption is the number one way to do it. Disrupting an industry, disrupting something that needs to be disrupted. Like all of you know, I'm in the infinite banking space. What are we trying to do in that space? We're trying to disrupt banking. We're trying to teach people how to take back control of the banking in their lives. Now, that's what Scott's done. He's done it on so many different levels, but we're going to get into a lot of stories. But let me just preface two things. He has had to battle publicly traded companies. He literally had to fight the United States government because of his pursuit in disrupting. He's gone on to build huge companies, his company now, and he's streaming right here, right now from Colombia, where he's sitting in his facility with over 180 people. Folks, welcome to the show, Scott Morse.
Brother, I appreciate it. Great intro, man. I'm excited to be here. Like I was telling you off camera, I've been a fan for a long time. So this is kind of a really important moment to be able to come in here and get to know you a little bit better and bring some value and share my journey.
Your journey is an awesome one, and I think maybe that's the best place to start, is just to kind of talk about your journey, because I know you come from really humble beginnings. And a lot of people, when they hear a story, they want to hear those humble beginnings and how you've clawed your way to the success you have. So let's just start there. Tell everybody a little bit about where you started, and then just kind of wrap up with where you're at, which you're sitting at your facility. So folks, if you're just listening to this, in the background, you can see his entire facility. I don't know how deep that is, but he's got a lot of folks there. So he's doing some things right. So yeah, Scott, let's hear it.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I share this with the most humbleness. My parents, they got pregnant at 16, married at 17. They just celebrated their 50th anniversary, but when you start off that young, the family doesn't have much resources. We lived in the same house for 18 years. My dad didn't graduate high school. My mom graduated high school. Nobody in our family had gone through for secondary education. But one thing my dad was really good is he was a roofer his whole entire life. His dad was a roofer. He was a roofer. He knew I was destined, Chris, to work with my hands if he didn't scare the shit out of me. And so that's what he did. He would bring me out on job sites. He would show me how miserable this was. And I would have to take a magnet and go and pick up all these nails in the yard or climb on hot roofs. And so at an early age,
my dad made me do this.
My man.
My dad had me out on those 90-degree days with that big magnet cleaning up all the nails that his lazy ass on the roof couldn't get into the roof.
Man.
Sorry,
No, it's exactly it. And so I just, I knew at a young age that wasn't going to be for me. But I said this to my team this morning. We just started 75 Hard. We have 63 kids participating in 75 Hard. And once a year, we get as many people who want to participate and do it. And I said, how many people in here went to a 4-year degree or has a 4-year degree? Small amount of hands. How many people tried and then failed? A little bit more bands. How many people never went to college? The majority of the hands. And I said, well, you guys get to do the same thing that I did 20 years ago. You get to curate your own education. If you're not going to go to school, you now have an advantage. You don't have to learn about subjects that aren't important to you for you to monetize your efforts in the future. And so we talked a little bit about that. And so just at a young age, I said, I'm going to be one of the highest self-educated people. I found that in books. I didn't go to college, but I learned the art of communication and the power of persuasion through various sales related jobs, and then took that into an entrepreneurial pursuit that allowed me to get out of Virginia, get down to Florida. And I just keep on going further south. Like, I don't know exactly what countries, but I just keep on migrating south.
So, one of the things you said in there is self-taught. I went to college, but I went to a 2-year community college. And when I went to college, I had a huge advantage over probably 99.9% of the other kids that were in that college. And that was, I had started my own business at the time when I was going to college. So when I went to college, I went on a mission. I needed to learn economics. I needed to learn bookkeeping. I needed to learn small business math. I took only courses that were related to my business. And the teachers, when I got with them, I'd stay after with them and I would tell them, hey, listen, here's the struggles I'm having. And I remember the most difficult part about college is they literally forced me to take curriculums and courses that had nothing to do with what I wanted to go to college for. If I wanted the degree, I had to take those courses. One of them was bowling, which, hey, look, at the time it was stupid, but I guess now it kind of helps if I ever go to a odds and ends bowling game. But it's just interesting how education works. My
Yeah.
daughter's 4, and I know you have 2 beautiful daughters.
Yes.
We're going to talk about them in a little bit, but my daughter's 4, and I'm not going to probably ever have her go to public school. Not that I have a problem with public school. I went through public school, but like you just mentioned, it's like a boxed lunch, right? You got to eat what's in the box. And that's all there is. Like my daughter's in Montessori school, and what they do there is they find the child's strength and they lean into that strength and they push the child to go deeper and deeper into what they enjoy and what they like. And that's just how education should be. And now I get it. That's not a scalable model, but you know what? The way you did it is you were able to get the knowledge through books and other materials. And you just mentioned with your employees how they're going to be self-taught as well. There's nothing more powerful than that. I just wish more people had the desire to actually go and learn and pursue that for themselves, because the best investment we can all make is in ourselves. And that's what you've done. So I want to talk a little bit about your disruptions.
Yeah.
Now, I know you had a company, and I don't know the years, so maybe I'll let you talk about it, but it was a timeshare business where you disrupted the timeshare industry through direct marketing and direct response. Now, timeshares, as most people know, that business is kind of slimy. You get invited to go to this thing, you sit through a half a day thing, and then they sell you a timeshare. So how did you kind of decide you were going to disrupt the timeshare, and what was that business like?
So a little bit prior to that, I actually got my first sales job. I installed a security system. Like I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I knew I needed to do something. It wasn't going to be hands. So I was installing a security system at a timeshare resort. And I saw all these really young kids wearing suits and driving really nice cars. And so as I'm like installing it and showing the guy how to program it, it's like, what do you guys do? And they're like, we sell timeshare. I was like, I don't know what it is, but I'll be back tomorrow. So literally started my sales career there. So for a year and a half, 2 years, I got to see the front side of that business model. I was recruited out to another type of sales position, Chris, but ultimately that still festered in the back of my head. Like I learned so much about human psychology and persuasion, how to anchor a deal, how to elicit emotions to move somebody towards a transaction. But I saw the worst side of it. And so ultimately, when I started a marketing company, I said, you know what, there's a huge need for people who feel like they were wronged into these contracts. Let's see if I can't line up with some attorneys out there that will represent these people who are in this situation where they've been a victim of deceptive sales tactics, fraud in the inducement, et cetera, et cetera. And in the beginning, just to talk about the disruption part, I didn't have the money to really go hard at this paint and say, hey, I'm gonna buy all these leads. So the very first thing I did to disrupt, as I realized that on Google Ads, as somebody who can buy ads, anybody out there, is instead of buying like keywords like, hey, how do I exit my timeshare or something like that, I would buy words for like, how do I pay my maintenance fee bills? Or I would buy, like, if I was trying to sell Pepsi, I would buy Coca-Cola's brand name so that way my ads would show up. And I just found all these white hat, yet ethical ways to say, okay, what's the real search intent at the bottom of the funnel that I'm going after? Nobody out there is more wanting to get rid of their timeshare other than somebody trying to pay their timeshare bill. So I would buy all the keywords for all the billing websites. So that way, when they typed in the billing website, my thing would pop up saying, tired of paying your bills? Boom, consult with one of our attorneys. And so that was a really easy way because it was also cheaper. So I look at that, any industry I go into is like, okay, what are the obscure yet high velocity, low funnel keywords that I can purchase to capture traffic and piggyback off of somebody else's larger budget? Like I'll never have the marketing budget of a Wyndham or a Diamond Resorts or Sheraton. But if I can leverage their TV budget or their budget to drive traffic towards my website, there's a great way to do that. And that was kind of the first way I started to disrupt the marketing side while bringing this novel product to a marketplace.
That's brilliant. So, folks, I can't help but to think, like, all of you listening to this, including myself, you're in a business, you're doing something, and you just heard what he talked about with timeshares, and you're like, wow, I need to do that in my industry. Cause I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, all right, infinite banking. Like if you search infinite banking, like it can kind of get busy and then BYOB, but like, what is it people really are searching that would land them there? Is it buy term, invest the different? I mean, what are these things? So like, I couldn't help but to think like, that's really smart. If everybody's going right, you go left. So how, like, what was the end result of that company? I mean, was it
It was,
successful?
yeah, super successful. And so we got up to about 100 and some employees, maybe 160 in South Florida, two great business partners at the time. We got it to a place where it was printing out millions and millions of dollars net profit a year. And ultimately the developers that we were helping consumers get out of these like really burdensome contracts. They caught wind that we had put our company up for offering to bring in capital. And we had just gotten a signed letter of intent. We've been through all due diligence. We had a closing date. I literally started picking out planes. So like it was that serious. And I'd never been plane shopping before. It was such a beautiful thing. And I don't have a drop, not an iota. The fact that it ultimately didn't got through. I have no concerns. No, I'm blessed with everything in the outcome. But ultimately, they ended up suing us to stop the deal, and it ended up putting us out of business. We just couldn't afford to go against $2 billion companies. They sued us for north of $60 million. And then ultimately, these guys ever wanted was us to just go out of business. That was it. We don't care about the money. We just want you to stop. We don't want you to disrupt our industry anymore. Go back to whatever you want to go do. Just don't do it in our industry. And so then ultimately, that led a pathway to the REI space.
Okay. So you went from timeshares, which I guess
Yep.
in a roundabout way, you could say is real estate, not direct, but
Yeah.
it's real estate. So then how did you find the path to where you're at now in the REI space?
So the initial idea came from a gentleman, a dear friend of mine. He's a business partner in some of my commercial properties in the States. But he was just like, hey, man, I'd always lent him money and he always paid back and I would be a capital partner, but I didn't care about the deal. I literally didn't care about the terms. I knew he was my boy. He treated me good. I would float capital. I would get it back. Life was good. But then when he realized that that was going down, he was like, hey, man, if you'll just take your business model and apply it to this concept, dude, I think you'll murder it. And so the very first thing I did was just a little bit of diligence. I loved the idea, but I said, wait a minute, okay, let's now learn and look. And I went to a bunch of people's websites in this REI world, investors, wholesalers, and I just started filling out forms. And as juvenile as this may be, but I have a guy I look up to, his name's Kent Clothier. He says, never underestimate the mediocrity of your competition, right? And I just couldn't believe, I was dumbfounded because I was in a competitive space. This is now born a cottage industry. I'd been in other competitive verticals. I just couldn't understand how few people had good landing pages, had a phone number on their website, had called the leads back within 48 hours, 24 hours, the same day. And so once I said, oh man, this is not even cowboys. These are like hobbyists sprinkled all throughout in these little fragmented markets. I really saw it as something. I said, okay, with humbleness, I can come into this space and I can have another disruptive impact because I can isolate and have a more cohesive sales infrastructure and marketing infrastructure than a lot of these smaller guys who kind of halfway doing it.
So one thing too that I want to bring up is when you were going through that whole thing with I should say selling the timeshare disruption business, and then you kind of got tangled up with all the publicly traded companies that just wanted you to go out of business. Now you had a young daughter at the time too. What was that like, with your family? I mean, that's got to just be stressful. You think you're going to exit for, I don't even know what the multiple you were going to exit for, but if you're looking at planes, you're talking tens of millions, if not a little bit more. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you get served and now all of a sudden everything's up in the air. Like, What was that like?
So it was for 52 million, for 50%. And then we had a legacy clause where we had to stay there for a certain amount of time, to continue to man the ship. But even just taking a company to be sold is one of the most stressful things that you could ever go through. I mean, they go through everything, the diligence, just having to pay people and set up tax structures and so many attorneys, people think, and that was before the litigation. But sadly enough, and I struggle even to use the word sadly, it's just how it worked out, but it's all part of the plan. But like 2 months before we got sued, my daughter, who was 2.5 at that time, I had a castle in Orlando, And she's in the backyard. And all of a sudden I see this lump kind of like sticking out of her stomach-ish. And I'm like, that's weird. And so I go touch it. I say, oh man, I don't know. I've never really shared this part on a podcast, but I rushed her to the doctor, took her to the doctor. I didn't even rush her. I was just like, oh, that's kind of weird. Like, okay, what is it? And then the doctor, he looks at me, he says, Scott, don't pay, don't check out, don't stop at my front desk. You take your daughter right this second to the emergency room. So I take her to the emergency room, man, and they start hooking her all up. And it's just honest to God, this is how naive I was to the tragedy at hand. It was day 2. My brother had flown in from Virginia, Chris, and a minister comes in and he does a prayer over my daughter. I was like, he walks out and I told my brother, I'm like, dude, that was weird. Why would he come in here? And I said, what's that word he used? Oncologist? And he was like, you don't know what oncology means? This is day 2. Honest to God, this is day 2. And I was like, no, what's oncology mean? He's like, bro, you're in the cancer ward. And just like, oh, because I thought it was just a tumor. I didn't realize it was the size of a college football that they ended up removing from inside of a 2.5-year-old girl, which is a cancerous tumor called Wilms tumor. And so we were fighting her cancer, her chemo, her radiation, and then a $1 billion lawsuit or $1 billion backed company suing us for tens of millions of dollars. Then ultimately the feds, because the federal trustee was assigned to the case as well too. And then all that was going on, and we just managed stuff.
Your real estate business lives and dies by the network and the connections that you make. I mean, after all, your network, well, it's your net worth. That's what you always heard, right? If that's an area where you desire improvement, well, Private Money Club, it's for you. PMC saves you precious time and money by bringing the real estate world, well, right to you, right in the palm of your hand. So get in on the action like so many others have by going to privatemoneyclub.com and sign up.
That's just every dad and mom's worst nightmare. I mean, literally, as you're saying that, I got goosebumps. Having a 4-year-old, I just can't imagine. And some people were like, well, how did you not know it was cancer? But like, you had a lot going on, and like, I'm listening to that, and I'm like, I probably would have thought the same thing.
I just thought it was a tumor. I thought tumors are like things like, oh, it's a tumor. Somebody's got a lump under their skin. It didn't click.
But not only that, you're an optimistic person. So you go into things with an optimistic view. A lot of people, go into everything with a pessimistic, negative view. And it usually never leads anywhere good. But you went in with an optimistic view. So even when they told you and the reality sank in, you still just, I get it. So if people are listening and like, how did you not know? Like, I can relate. But so she's fine now. I mean, she's 7 years old now, right?
Yeah, cancer-free, brother. We went through the whole thing. She actually just you ring the bell twice. Once when you're like initially cancer-free, and then once after you've done like a couple of years post-therapy. And so she's 100% completely done. She now no longer has to go for any checkups. That just happened within like the past 4 months that they said, hey, listen, now you no longer need to come back. But I can tell you, man, I don't think I've been more proud to be a dad as I was throughout that time of my life, and laying in that hospital every bed with her for months, and just literally sleeping in a hospital bed with her by my side. It's one of my top greatest accomplishments in my life, was to be the man in the household for her during that period of time.
It's powerful, man. It's powerful. And you also have a 5-year-old too. I mean, like, you got a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and you beat cancer, or she beat cancer, but you beat it with her. And I mean, that's the beauty about a family unit, is you do everything together. And I love that. You were fighting publicly traded companies, fighting cancer. It's just, wow. All right. So let's kind of go to, now you got this business, but you moved. So I know you kept going south. You were in Florida, but now you're in Colombia. You got 180 plus employees. And still a lot of people, like, they're hearing what you're saying, but I don't think a lot of people fully understand direct response. So can you just explain the nature of your business, then spin the nature of the business into specifically what you do in the real estate industry?
Yeah. So I love direct response marketing. And to me, and maybe it's a unclassic definition of it, but to me, it's like insert value at get out leads. Like it should be almost like an ATM. I'm going to put my card in and I'm going to pull out something. So direct response marketing is typically like a PPC, a mail, TV, et cetera, et cetera. But I took all the things that I learned from PPC and direct response marketing in the timeshare, and then I came into the REI vertical and I said, okay, this is cool, this is great, but some of these leads are really expensive. Like mail leads can be really expensive. TV leads can be really expensive. So how do I create that level quality of leads, PPC leads from outbound? So the majority of what you see behind me, last year, we did 59 million outbound dials out of these seats just last year. So we're generating tens of thousands of highly qualified leads because I took the same filtration process, that same kind of mindset that I had on the direct response and said, okay, how can I create the best outbound dial campaign? And that was the point of this room behind me, because you don't need all this staff for, mail or TV. You need all this staff to be able to do a really high level outbound campaign.
Well, I think you're also tapped into something, in a world where we're getting rid of people and we're going to this minimalist, business model where computers and technology and AI and all this, rule the roost. You're kind of going back to almost like, I don't want to say the 50s and 60s, but like back the good old just pound the phone, hit it with real people. Because listen, like, no matter how advanced AI gets, no matter how advanced robots and all this gets, I mean, Matrix, the Terminator, whatever you want to call the stuff that's happening now, people are people and they want that human relation. They want to talk to somebody on the other line. They don't want to talk to a computer. They don't want to talk to AI, because eventually, no matter how good the AI is at this point, you eventually know you're talking to a computer. You are not human. You're not talking to a human. That human relationship is gone. So I give you a lot of credit, because a lot of people wouldn't do that, because 180 people, that's a lot of cost. But now, why Colombia? Like, why did you choose that area?
Yeah. Why did I choose Colombia? And also, why not do it remotely? And so that goes kind of to the
why not do
old
it
school
VAs?
side. Yeah, exactly. I believe so much in sales culture. Like, the reason why our company's name is Llama Suit, it's got a story behind it. Everybody knows, everybody's got the Llama Suit gear. I've created a clean, as I like to say, Wolf of Wall Street environment. Like, this has got the vibes. And the reason why I chose to build that here in Colombia is really just diligence as well, too. So like, I tried the Philippines, I tried Egypt, I tried like the known guys. And then I ended up trying a small team out in Cali, Colombia, which is like to the east of where I'm at. And it was good. And I loved it because it was the same time zone and they have an affinity for American culture. So like every restaurant, they play 80s rock and 90s rock. I was like, okay, we got a lot of the good components here, but that guy had never ran a business before. So I talked to my wife and I talked to the family and I said, hey, listen, I'm just going to go down there. Let's go down there for 6 months. They have a good Montessori school. So my kids are in a Montessori here as well, too. And let's just go down there for a short period of time and we'll just, and I'll set it all up and then I'll come back home. But we fell in love. And like, these kids are my why. These kids at this office is now part of my why as well. And we just created something really special, man, that I think being on this time zone, an appreciation for American culture. And these guys know that this doesn't exist anywhere else. There's no office like this, Chris, for sure in this state, if not this country. There's maybe 2 or 3 offices of this caliber in this country. We got people, we got cake, we got everything that we're supposed to get barber chairs here in this cute quarter. So like, I'm trying to build something.
It's total Wolf of Wall Street right there. Barber chairs. Oh my gosh, man. Yeah. That's wild. So you guys do outbound calls, and you basically you get leads for people that may or may not want to sell. Like, I don't want to try to talk through the business. Just kind of walk me through step by step, like kind of how the process works, and then what's the end product and who buys it.
Yeah. So my clients are investors or wholesalers nationwide, typically single families, some smaller commercial guys. But, I represent probably 65, 70 of the big, out of my 70 clients or so, there's some really big whales in there, like really big guys that everybody knows in the industry. But those guys come to me because they're like, hey, listen, I want high velocity, high quality leads. And then they'll have a market for territory and we'll do all the data research. We have all the analytics on our end. And then we're just literally pounding the phones. And I think you said it best, like the old school way, but with a really high level sales skill, sales training, technology stack that puts us leaps and bounds over everybody else. And that's what we do. We just call 59 million homeowners last year saying, hey, listen, effectively, do you have a property that you're interested in selling? If so, we're going to share with you more about our company. We're going to exchange. We don't say it like this, but we exchange value for equity. So our objective is to build a lot of value on the phone. So the customer, it makes sense for the customer to exchange that value for their equity. And then we help people find discounted prices, discounted properties.
So if you got 70 clients buying these leads from you and they continuously are doing it, and these are the big guys, that obviously you're doing something right. So why not have 170 clients?
I don't know if there's really that many big guys out there. I know that there's more than what I have on the hook right now.
But you need more.
I don't think so, man. What I need more is
the thing. Like, if you don't need more, why take on the headache of trying to appease, and why not just go deeper with the ones you currently have?
Exactly. I'm more about increasing their revenue per month because, again, they're getting the value and helping them go deeper. We offer nurture products, texting, stuff like that. Dude, we're in such a good vibe. We're in such a good zone right now. I'm really happy with the clientele that we have. I say this humbly. I don't need this company to survive. I have chosen this company because I fucking love it. I love the value that we bring. I love how we're disrupting the industry. We're changing the quality of what a lead definition is in this industry. And we're at a good, comfortable pace. Right now, we're in a race against ourselves, which can be dangerous. But, we still got room for growth for sure.
And that's the one thing, too, that I left out, and shame on me. The one thing I didn't tell my audience is you're also a large real estate holder. You have lots of properties as well. So when he said that he doesn't need this business, he doesn't. He's got real estate that is out there making money for him while he's doing what he loves with this company.
Yeah. And I made a shit ton of money in my previous businesses.
That's true.
So, and I love this industry because it allows you, if you're well positioned and you run a campaign for yourself, you cherry pick what you want. You might wholesale the rest or find homes for the rest of the properties. But I still have a lot to learn on the real estate side. My objective at this stage is to continue to build a brand, help as many. There's a lot of people out there that are teetering right now in the REI world.
Yeah.
And they need stability. Some of the best things that I can offer them is just stability, like a stable, quality lead flow. You're not going to print out a Lamborghini because you hired me. But if you can just have some stability, now you can focus on the rest of your operation. So that's what I hope to provide a lot of these guys.
I love that. And folks, we're going to talk a little bit about Scott's view on kind of real estate, where it's going, because he's seeing it. He's seeing it front line, literally. Yeah. But before I do that, folks, in the description, we're going to have the link to Scott's podcast. You definitely got to check that out. We'll give you a link to his website so you can learn more about what he's doing. And, I don't know if he's taking new clients on, but if any of you have interest, then definitely reach out to him. But Scott, let's kind of kick this into overdrive in this final segment of this episode. And let's talk a little bit about what you are seeing frontline. I guess if everybody's just watching the news, most people would think that real estate's booming and it's just hot, and there's more demand than there is supply and everything's perfect. But then when you're inside, like from my seat, what I see is something a little different. I see a lot of demand at a price that is not sustainable, at a price that is not relevant or found out there in the market. I see a much higher price point, and I see this huge disconnect between what people want and what they can afford. Like, what are you seeing in real estate? Because certain markets like Florida and different areas, they're coming down off of highs. They're actually going the wrong direction. Like, what do you think the next 12 months to 24 months looks like in the real estate market?
So great questions. I think that we're more than the tip of the spear. We're like the air molecules that flow around the tip of the spear because we're doing so much volume. And I can speak significantly more to the seller sentiment than I can the buyer sentiment. It's just, that's why I'm talking to more of those on the other side. I recently used this analogy with one of my big affiliates in St. Louis. I said, do you know, what's the name of that candle factory that's at the mall sometimes in the States? Anyways, Yankee Candle.
Yankee Candle.
This is almost like Yankee Candle. You can smell Yankee Candle before you get the Yankee Candle. And so I can smell what I'm about to say. I can feel there's enough. It's just starting to change. We're seeing it here. We're seeing it there. It's a little ephemeral right now. It's starting to go in the data. But I don't want to use the word easier, but it hasn't been this enjoyable to generate leads as it has been in the past 60 days or so. And it's almost like 60 to 90 days. And some of it's a little market specific, but not really. I think, surprise, surprise, that the sellers are more accepting now of the fact that, yes, if I move, I'm going to have to get a shit interest rate. Stop holding on to that objection. Okay, yes, I thought the market was on fire and it may be better, but I'm now going to come to reality that this equity train that I was riding is slowing down. So now I'm open to selling. So people who weren't open to sell, everybody was open to selling during the COVID fear when the hedge funds are going crazy. Obviously, everybody was selling. But then we started to see a real significant tightening up, Chris, on the residential side, where people are like, I've lived in my house for 30 years. There's no way I have a 2.6. There's no way I'm going to sell. I'm starting to see that change, and it's become more enjoyable to talk to these sellers. And I feel like, and some of this is summer months vibe. There's a little bit of summer months cooties to what I'm saying, but I'm feeling it soften up on the seller side more than it has in a significantly long time. And I see it in the numbers, and I see it in the answer rates, and I see it in the conversation lengths. So I think there's going to be the inventory coming to market that really helps kind of shape the next 12 months or so.
Well, that's actually good because, like you said, you're seeing a lot of people in our industry, they're teeter-tottering. And a lot of that was because of what you said. It's been a very difficult market to get people to want to sell their houses. And
Yes.
rightfully so. They're all locked into this artificially low interest rate. They think that day is going to come back. And now the longer that it goes on, the more they listen to the news and hear Jerome Powell talk about higher for longer, they're starting to, I think, realize like maybe rates aren't going to come back down there. Maybe if I'm going to make a move, now is the time because prices could come down even further if the economy softens.
Yes.
So, I like that you use the word enjoyable because I know the same folks, we run in the same circles with Kent Clothier in the boardroom.
Yes.
A lot of those folks that, they were high on high on the hill, I guess is the way you say it. And they've definitely been struggling a little bit. So now hearing that from you, hopefully spells a little bit out what's going to happen in the next couple months, give it 12 months or so, and it starts getting more enjoyable, a little easier, and things start to open up. And that's what you just said. So what do you have? I mean, do you see what about price? We didn't so much talk about price. We talked about rates, but just, in the final thing, what do you think is going to happen to pricing on real estate? Do you think it's coming down? Do you think it's going to hold steady? Where do you see that going?
I should have been a politician with the way I'm going to answer this question because I'm not. I don't really care. We build value and get a discount whether the price is high or low. It doesn't matter to me. It's not a factor that we look at because so our whole objective is sales people. It's how do we create an offering that matters. So whether the prices go down 20% or go up another 10%, as long as people are willing to have a conversation about their home, that's like base one. Just get me on first base, coach. I'll steal second. I'll round third, whatever it may be. So I'm not educated enough about that candidly that we're doing all this because I don't focus on it, even if it may be to my detriment. So we're just here to have quality conversations, build value, get somebody to see the opportunity that exists with taking advantage of the certainty of getting rid of their home while they're on the phone with us today. And if that works for them, then we help them.
Love it. All right. So crystal ball stuff, looking 10 years into the future, where are you going to be at? What's your goal?
It's a great question because I have a lot of this mapped out. I'd say the summary side is, I'm all about leaving a legacy, and a lot of my legacy will be left through literature as well as businesses. And so, like, I see these kids here, and I know that these kids will ultimately take this business over relatively soon. I don't have to be here. I love it. My kids by that age will be teenagers, and it'll be time to spend more time. One of them will be 17. It'll be time to spend more time with the wifey. But, as long as I'm waking up with a beautiful morning routine, no matter where it's at, dude, I'm just I know it sounds cheesy, but I'm just a happy guy. Like, I'm happy in the present today. I have goals, but I'm not sweating 10 years. I'll be blessed if I'm alive 10 years from now, as we all will be.
Absolutely, man. I love that. And, people, I go through the same thing. People ask me that all the time. I can kind of tell them where I think I'll be, but the most important thing is where we're at right here, right now, the present moment, because it's the only one that matters and the only one we have control of. And a lot of people get mad at me because I don't know what my calendar looks like on Wednesday and Thursday. And I certainly don't know what it looks like a month from now. I don't look. I look at the current day because it's all I care about because it's all I can control. The rest of it is out of my control. So therefore, like, there's no sense in me knowing it or trying to, have it all saved in my mind. But I love that you mentioned that because I think that's a big problem today. So many people are living in the past. living their life looking in a rearview mirror, or, looking so far out the front windshield that they can't see what's immediately in front of them, which is either the thing they're going to crash into or just a beautiful, beautiful view. I think social media has done a lot of harm. It's done a lot of good, but it's done a lot of harm on people because it's really taken them out of the reality of the now, the present. And glad you said that, because I think you're the first person that I've had on this podcast in over 200 episodes that has mentioned the present moment being the single most important one. And I think it's awesome what you're doing there, and just kind of building all the, I don't know how all the folks are that work for you, but it sounds like they're younger, so that's awesome. You're just showing them, the things that you've learned and passing that knowledge on, and just instilling in them that they can be and have anything they want if they work hard toward it. So, man, Scott, been a great episode today. Anything you would say in the final words?
Yeah, I was looking at a bio on you, and you had a book by Gary Keller that you had recommended or something. I saw.
Yeah,
show you this thing. I'd love to meet him one day, but I had this made. I don't know how well you can read it on the camera, but it says, this is a quote I heard of this, and it hangs in my office. He who controls the leads controls the industry. Gary Keller. And the first time I heard that became like a driving motif in here. And so it's like, we're here, like we said in the beginning, to kind of disrupt. Obviously, disrupting and adding value. Sometimes disrupting is just a mental concept, a plateau that the industry has accepted. But that's what we're trying to do. Once we control the leads, and effectively, humbly, we control the industry. And, I'm thankful to be a guest. I'm agnostic to the REI world. You could message me after this and say, hey, man, I have a cool mousetrap. I'd shut all this down and shut it up again. I'm agnostic. But while I'm here in the REI space, I plan to leave a little bit of a wave.
I love it, man. Well, as every surfer would ever say, they're always chasing the next wave. So that's what I'll leave this at, is, the next wave might just come your way. With that being said, Scott, thanks so much for your time, and thanks for coming on the show. And folks, again, in the description, I'll have the link to his podcast and also his website, so you can check out what he's doing and stay up to date on all the things that he's disrupting out there. With that being said, thanks for joining us for another episode of the Money School podcast. See you next time.